This week in the Pentagon, diplomatic relations. The Defense Secretary travels to Middle Eastern nations to meet with foreign leaders and speak to U.S. troops.
When I took this job, I was asked what my agenda was, and I said Iraq, Iraq, and Iraq.
Plus, Operation Tomodachi.
There is no lessening of our commitment to assisting the Japanese during this difficult time.
The disaster relief and humanitarian mission in Japan continues strong.
We wanted to come help for a long time, so now we're finally on the ground, and all the Marines feel the same way. They couldn't wait to get off the boat and come down here and help the people of Hiroshima.
And military medicine, helping military spouses, reservists, and retirees find jobs.
They put my resume together, they helped me with the cover letter, and then they asked me, are you interested in us assisting you with finding a job? Oh, yes.
Welcome to This Week in the Pentagon. I'm Petty Officer Liz Murray. In an effort to reaffirm the U.S. commitment to a long-term relationship with Iraq, Defense Secretary Robert Gates traveled to that country to meet with top leaders there. But before those meetings, Mr. Gates stopped in Riyadh for a meeting with Saudi Arabian King Abdullah to discuss continued unrest sweeping across the region.
The Defense Secretary touched down in Saudi Arabia to meet with King Abdullah April 6th. The leaders discussed how to prevent Iran and extremist groups from attempts to exploit the recent unrest sweeping across the Middle East. April 7th, Secretary Gates arrived in Baghdad, Iraq, to hold meetings with senior leaders there, including Iraqi President Jalal Talabani. He reaffirmed the American commitment to a long-term partnership with Iraq, but said the role U.S. forces will play after 2011 remains uncertain.
If there is to be a presence to help them with some of the areas where they still need help, we're open to that possibility. But they have to ask, and time is running out in Washington because we've got a lot going on around the world.
While in Iraq, Mr. Gates visited with troops from the 25th Infantry Division at Camp Liberty.
The difference that you have made is just night and day, and I thank you for your service and your sacrifice.
He then took questions from soldiers in what he said is likely his last trip to that country as Secretary of Defense. Current unrest throughout the region concerned most, but the Secretary said it also highlighted Iraq as a success story.
So Iraq, in many respects, thanks to the efforts of a lot of people and a lot of blood and treasure, in some respects is a model in terms of where the rest of these guys want to go. And Iraq can be a help to them, I think.
The United States now has about 47,000 troops in Iraq, but they're scheduled to begin withdrawing this summer.
This week, the United States Attorney General announced that 4 alleged plotters of the September 11th terrorist attacks will now be tried in a military court at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. The move is a change from an earlier decision to initially try the defendants in civilian court. Staff Sergeant E.L. Craig reports.
A military commission will now decide the fate of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and his 4 co-conspirators, all accused of terrorism-related offenses, including the murder of Americans. Attorney General Eric Holder spoke from the Justice Department April 4th.
I am referring the cases of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Walid Mohammed bin Atash, Ramzi bin al-Shib, Ali Abdul Aziz Ali, and Mustafa Ahmed Hawasawi to the Department of Defense to proceed in military commissions. Furthermore, I have directed prosecutors to move to dismiss the indictment that was handed down under seal in the Southern District of New York in December of 2009, and a judge has granted that motion.
The accused have been held at Guantanamo Bay's detention facility since their capture. In 2008, the men made their first ever military court appearance. In November 2009, it was announced the defendants would be tried in federal court for their roles in the September 11th terrorist attacks. Mr. Holder said he believed the trials could have moved forward in either New York or Virginia, but that Congress imposed restrictions on where the trials could be held.
Prosecutors from both the Department of Defense and Justice have been working together since the beginning of this matter, and I have full faith and confidence in the military commission system to appropriately handle this case as it proceeds.
Military commissions historically have been used to prosecute enemy combatants who violate the laws of war. These tribunals are overseen by military judges and lawyers, and more restrictions are usually placed on the release of documents and evidence pertaining to the case.
The desire is to do this as soon as can be, while still obviously preserving the defendant's right to a fair trial and ultimately hopefully bringing justice to the victims.
Pentagon Press Secretary Jeff Morrell told reporters this week the defense secretary has full confidence the cases will be fairly adjudicated.
10 years is a long time for victims to wait for justice. Obviously, there's been some complicating factors, but I think the decision has been made to proceed with adjudicating this individual in the military judicial system, which is perfectly capable of doing so.
For This Week in the Pentagon, I'm Staff Sergeant E.L. Craig.
The U.S. commitment to relief efforts in Japan will continue for as long as needed following the devastating earthquake and tsunami that hit the country March 11th. That's according to U.S. Pacific Fleet Commander Admiral Patrick Walsh. And for troops serving in certain parts of Japan, they could be entitled to special pay. The U.S. military continues to demonstrate its global reach and effectiveness in assisting other nations. Nowhere is that more apparent than in Japan, where, according to the Pentagon, since Operation Tomodachi began, about 20,000 personnel, 140 aircraft, and more than 20 ships from the U.S. military have supported operations.
We continue to have tens of thousands of forces, scores of thousands of forces in Japan. We have about 20,000 committed to this phase of the operation, the humanitarian assistance disaster relief.
An estimated 28,000 people are either dead or missing as a result of the earthquake and tsunami. This week, nearly 200 Marines and sailors from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit traveled to the remote Japanese island of Oshima to help with disaster relief operations. Along with military personnel, landing craft from USS Essex brought Humvees, dump trucks, and water trucks to help remove wreckage.
We waited long enough. We wanted to come help for a long time, so now we're finally on the ground, and all the Marines feel the same way. They couldn't wait to get off the boat and come down here and help the people of Oshima.
The Marines are also scheduled to clean the island's harbor, which will allow for better transportation of humanitarian aid. Effective April 1st, troops serving in certain parts of Japan started receiving hardship duty pay. Those serving permanently and those sent temporarily in support of operations are eligible to receive an extra $50 a month. Payment is retroactive. Coming up, honoring a program that has brought comfort to grieving military families. Welcome back to our program. Beginning June 1st, the Pentagon says Social Security numbers on military identification cards will be eliminated. The move is part of an effort to protect service members and other DoD cardholders from identity theft. Currently, Social Security numbers are printed on the back of Common Access cards and on the front side of cards issued to dependents and retirees. The department says as current cards expire, they will be replaced with new cards having a unique 10-digit ID number. According to the Social Security Administration, identity theft is one of the fastest growing crimes in America. Criminals often use the numbers to open fraudulent credit card, debit, and bank accounts. They are often called angels of the battlefield, corpsmen and medics who administer life-saving medical treatment to troops serving on the front lines. This past week in Washington, D.C., the Armed Services YMCA honored a few of these heroes from each of the services for their commitment to service. When a soldier goes down, they are the ones who risk it all.
Come to me,
to provide life-saving aid to the wounded.
Both as a commanding general in combat and as a father, I'm indebted to you.
At an event marking the 150th anniversary of the Armed Services YMCA, Army General Raymond Odierno said he knows all too well the service and the sacrifice of hospital corpsmen.
My son is alive today because of the heroic action of many medics after he was seriously wounded back in 2004. I appreciate what you do, how you care, how you bring forward the ethos that we're so proud of, selflessness, helping others.
Accepting an award on behalf of all U.S. Navy corpsmen was Petty Officer 3rd Class Shabir Nawabi. He served a 6-month deployment to Afghanistan. And on behalf of the medics in the Air Force, Staff Sergeant Abraham Hara accepted the award. He said the most rewarding part of being a medic is the appreciation shown by the families of those he's helped save. Air Force General Norton Schwartz and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Admiral Mike Mullen attended the ceremony and thanked each of the participants.
Tonight's awardees represent what's best about America and our armed forces. They reflect an incredible generation who has raised their right hands in order to volunteer to serve with full understanding of what they might be asked to do. Thank you. Thank you for what you have done in the past, what you do today, and what you will continue to do in the future.
Dealing with the loss of a loved one is hard for anyone, including military family members. The Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, or TAPS, has been helping military family members cope with the tragic loss of a loved one for more than 15 years. This week in Washington, a gala was held to praise the organization that has brought comfort to grieving families.
He was always one of the...
Since 1994, TAPS has assisted more than 30,000 surviving family members, including husbands, wives, and children. Tuesday, the program hosted their annual Honor Guard fundraising event, which helped raise nearly 25% of the annual operating costs for the TAPS program. The founder of TAPS, Bonnie Carroll, says it's because of people's generosity that TAPS is able to help families of the fallen.
The Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors is a wonderful story of courage and commitment. When an untimely and tragic event occurs and a service member is lost, the work of TAPS bears quiet testimony that even deep in the pain and tragedy of the loss, military surviving families who have walked this journey are ready to step forward to help bear a burden and care for those newly grieving as they cope and heal.
Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Admiral Mike Mullen, spoke at the event and talked about how important the TAPS program is to helping grieving families regain a sense of normalcy.
TAPS is truly a unique organization that fills a gap that I'm not sure we could have figured out to fill had it not been for Bonnie and her team.
One of the greatest ways TAPS helps family members cope is letting them talk with other families who are going through the same thing and helping all of them realize they're not alone.
Initially, I went to TAPS for my daughter, my oldest daughter, Sierra, who was 7 at the time that her daddy was killed. And but ever since, it's given my daughter, it gave my daughter hope and a place to feel comfortable with. Not comfortable with what had happened, but comfortable with how to deal with it.
Tuesday's fundraiser helped raise more than $1.1 million for the TAPS program. For This Week in the Pentagon, I'm Petty Officer Michael Wilkin.
Up next, helping military spouses, reservists, and retirees find jobs. Welcome back to This Week in the Pentagon. The Surgeon Generals of 3 of the services gave testimony before lawmakers on Capitol Hill about the state of military medical programs.
We have an enduring responsibility as part of the military health system and with the Department of Veterans Affairs to provide care and rehabilitation for our wounded, ill, and injured for many, many years to come. The United States Army's Warrior Transition Command, under the leadership of Brigadier General Darrell Williams, is a key part of the enduring provision of care and provides oversight of the Army's Warrior Care and Transition Program. Since the inception of these Warrior Transition Units in June of 2007, more than 40,000 wounded, ill, and injured soldiers and their families have either progressed through or are now being cared for by these dedicated caregivers. Over 16,000 of these soldiers have rejoined the force, and the remainder have been returned to the community with dignity and respect.
With unemployment rates higher than they've been in years, military families are among those feeling the pinch. But some organizations are working to help military spouses, reservists, and retirees find jobs. One such program, Military to Medicine, helps both beginners and those with military medical experience all around the world.
This is a critical time period for the country. And for our military families, we've been stretched.
Stretched like they haven't been in decades.
It's a critical time because the economy has been really rough on everyone. Families, housing issues, all of those, and finding jobs has been tough.
Sent out my resume, checked everywhere online for jobs, got no response.
It took him months to find a job, and along the way, reservist Andrew Boyd found out a few things about the civilian job world.
One thing I was struck by was how little a lot of hiring managers knew about the military. You know, on my resume, and when I would tell them I was a reservist, so they would say, so does that mean you're active duty?
For Lisa Cole, life changed when her husband, retired Army Specialist Daniel Cole, had a stroke.
Being that I'm a caregiver to my husband right now, and I'm a mom, and I have been out of work due to all of the situations that have come up. It was perfect for me, just for the simple fact I did not have to leave my home.
Like Specialist Boyd, Mrs. Cole discovered Military to Medicine, an online-based program in partnership with the Inova Health System in Northern Virginia. It is a dream come true for Executive Director and Navy Reserve Officer Daniel Nichols, who also serves as the Executive Assistant for the Navy's Deputy Chief of Chaplains for Reserve Affairs.
It is something that started during my deployment as a Naval Reserve Officer, as a chaplain in Iraq and Kuwait in 2003 with Marine Corps units. What I found during that time was that there are very few things that you can do for individuals that are more practical than providing job assistance and placement in a career where people can succeed.
Hey, how are you? When I walked in today, she said, hey, they just opened up 2 new medical offices where I live.
Patty Daytoss, who develops and oversees the online programming, also spends time helping students find their way in what can be unfamiliar territory.
I am a registered nurse and have taught in many programs and dealt with a lot of the military as they came out, and extremely frustrated, especially our medical corpsmen, as getting the frustration because there's not an equivalent for them coming from the military right equivalent to a civilian occupation.
This is important because you have more than 12,000 medics and corpsmen with combat action experience since the beginning of operations 2001, 2002. And there's pretty much no viable certificate program that they can easily transition to in the civilian world.
It's still up to me to have the qualifications and interview well, but I went months of just sending out resumes and getting nothing to getting an interview and getting hired.
With the help of Military to Medicine, Specialist Boyd is now a surgical technician, and Lisa Cole has given up accounting for a new career field.
They put my resume together, they helped me with the cover letter, and then they asked me, are you interested in us assisting you with finding a job? Oh, yes.
In addition to Microsoft, Call of Duty, and Fisher House and others, Military to Medicine also counts the services among its partners, especially the Armed Services Employer Partnership Program and the Army Spouse Employer Program. In more medical-related news, TRICARE officials just announced that health coverage will soon be made available to qualified young adults up to age 26. The new Young Adults program will allow qualified unmarried military children up to age 26 to buy health care coverage under their parents' TRICARE plan. The current maximum age is 21 or age 23 for full-time college students. TRICARE says coverage can be purchased on a month-to-month basis. For more information on the program, go to tricare.mil. This week, Operation Homefront held their 2011 Military Child of the Year Awards in Arlington, Virginia. 5 outstanding children were honored, 1 from each of the services.
Taylor Dahl Sims, a 12th grader from Oceanside, California, was the Marine Corps Child of the Year.
It's been a remarkable experience, and it's been a real honor. I mean, just the whole experience.
Her father, Staff Sergeant Eric Sims, says his family has been through a lot during his 5 deployments.
I think it's amazing. She's done a really good job when I was deployed, just keeping the home fires burning and helping my wife out.
First Lady Michelle Obama, who attended the event, praised the kids for their sacrifice.
And I'm here tonight because I want our country to know about you all as well. I want our country to know about the 5 of you and about all the military kids and families all across this country.
17-year-old Margaret Rochon is Military Child of the Year for the Coast Guard.
Great to be recognized, and especially hopefully I'll be able to take this and help other kids, especially inspire them or just kind of let them know that they're not the only ones out there.
They do as much sacrificing for our country and for our careers as we put out for our careers. So our family members do probably more sacrificing than we do.
We are really, really amazed by everything you all are doing. And again, we want this country to know your stories. We want you to be shining examples to all other young people of how much you can get done with a little will, a little passion, and a little determination.
April is designated the month of the military child, the 25th year of observance. Marine Sergeant Ashley Bryant says it's a time to take special note of the sacrifices made by the children of active duty military and their families.
On opening day of the Major League Baseball season in Washington, D.C., military children were welcomed onto the field to form the greeting line for the hometown Nationals. Barbara Thompson says this is the kind of recognition military kids should get often, but particularly in April.
We take a special pause this month to recognize their efforts and their contributions. And it's particularly, I think, important during these times of conflict that children are missing their parents and they're sacrificing a lot. And when we as adults and those of us who are advocates for children take pause to say your sacrifice is recognized and we want to commend you for what you do for your family.
Director Thompson notes that military children in the post-9/11 world know only a life of frequent parental deployment.
Whatever we do, we need to keep children connected with their parents. And so whether it's through websites or opportunities to journal, to read together, those kinds of things, even though they're thousands of miles away.
One point of emphasis this year, the Let's Move campaign to combat childhood obesity. It promotes 5210, which means
eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Limit your screen time to no more than 2 hours, get 1 hour of physical activity, and eliminate sugary drinks. Now, those are all important components of a healthy lifestyle.
Installations worldwide will host or sponsor special events for children all month long. For This Week in the Pentagon, I'm Marine Sergeant Ashley Bryant.
That's our show this week. We want to thank all those involved for their contributions. Please be sure to join us again next week as we feature top news stories surrounding the Department of Defense. For expanded coverage of the stories in our program, go to defense.gov. I'm Petty Officer Liz Murray. Thanks for watching. In recognition of the month of the military child, we leave you with these images of military kids.